Milo Garrison lived his life to a steady, low-key backbeat. The faint hiss of vinyl under the diamond tip, the muted clink of a register drawer, and the soft squeak a cardboard sleeve made when it released an LP. His store, Blue Note Landing, sat on Dempsey Street 3 flights up from the sidewalk, wedged like a treble clef between a pawn shop and a noodle bar. Every wall was shelved, Dixieland up front, hard bop along the back, fusion in the alcove where the air conditioning never reached. For most of River City, Blue Note Landing was just another vintage shop clinging to life. But for the musicians who haunted the warehouses and lofts of the arts district, it was headquarters. They came for the records, stayed for Milo's espresso, and usually left with both, plus whatever scraps of insider gossip he'd gleaned from listening more than talking. None of those musicians shone brighter or burned shorter than Orion Rye Palmer, a 27-year-old trumpet prodigy whose tone had the warmth of polished brass and the danger of a straight razor. When Rye lifted his horn, sidewalks seemed to change color. His legend grew fast, then faster, and Milo felt protective of the kid the way some people feel protective of a priceless first pressing. Every Friday, Milo threw a sky session on the roof of the Franklin warehouse 2 blocks north. No tickets, no stage, all concrete, rusted piping, and the nighttime cityscape. Wires snaked from a portable mixing board to amps, and candles in jelly jars kept people from tripping over monitor wedges. That building, built in 1908, sported a thick copper lightning rod that rose from the knee-high parapet like the needle of an old Victrola. Ugly, yes, but essential in a city that counted thunderstorms, the way jazz charts counted bars. The Friday that shattered everything began humid and stayed that way. Milo spent most of the afternoon inside the record shop inventorying a newly purchased estate collection, scarce Blue Note originals with laminated covers. When Rye strode in at 3:30, horn case slung over one shoulder, the kid looked wired and wary at once. "Need a place to hide, Rye?" Milo asked. Rye pulled a muted laugh from his throat. "Man, I just need fresh air that doesn't smell like rehearsal sweat." He paced the aisles, running a fingertip across spines, but Milo noticed Rye's eyes kept darting toward the window that faced Franklin Warehouse. Finally, Rye leaned against the counter. "You ever wonder what'd happen if that old lightning rod went missing?" Milo blinked. "That rod's older than both of us put together. Nobody's hauling it away. It's bolted straight into the beams." Rye didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened his trumpet case and withdrew a battered Harmon mute covered in etched names, signatures from horn players who'd loaned it good luck. "Someone offered me $2,000 for this mute last month," he said. "Collectors want anything that's pure metal, I guess. Copper, brass, things that can be melted, resold. This city'll hawk its own backbone if copper hits the right price," Milo agreed. "But we'd notice. Can't hide a missing lightning rod." Rye shrugged, replacing the mute. "Yeah, guess you can't." Then he shot Milo a crooked smile and changed the subject to a book a little pressing he needed. Milo chalked the rod talk up to pre-gig jitters. By dusk he had locked the shop, wheeled a pair of 8-inch powered speakers onto a dolly, and trudged the 2 blocks to Franklin Warehouse. Volunteers hoisted gear up the freight elevator. At 8:30 the rooftop glowed under string lights, the river seconds away a silver ribbon. Musicians tuned against the city hum. Someone popped open the first cooler. A small storm cell had brushed the western skyline earlier, but dissipated short of downtown. The forecast promised lingering electrical activity, and Milo glanced at the rod because he always did, a superstition. Its dull copper surface caught a street lamp's glow. He nodded to himself and set about connecting cables. Mid-set, Rye stepped up for his solo on a modal workout of So What, the skyline behind him like an oscilloscope. He blew one long, defiant note, then bent it into a metallic wail that cut through the rooftop chatter. The air felt ionized, hair-raising. Milo's ears pricked. Something in the frequency of Rye's open horn told him the kid was playing possessed. The final chorus crashed, applause erupted, and then the lights flickered. At first, Milo assumed the generator hiccuped, but the flicker turned into a violent strobing, amps whining like tortured cats. A crack, sharp as a rifle, split the night. Sparks spat from the PA column, and Milo smelled ozone. Rye lurched backward, trumpet flung from his hands, body seizing. By the time Milo sprinted across the roof, the young man lay twisted beside a metal mic stand, mouth open, eyes sightless. A hush sucked every decibel from the roof. Someone screamed, someone else pulled the amp plug. The lights steadied, and distant sirens began their slow approach. Police summarized the scene the next morning. Accidental electrocution. The PA's power conditioner had failed. Rye touched a conductive surface at the exact moment a stray voltage surge passed through the rig. A freak event. They wrote statements, photographed the scorched mic stand, shrugged at the ruined trumpet, then descended the stairwell. Milo remained after they left, hands jammed into jacket pockets, heart drumming a rhythmic time. He scanned the rooftop, cables, tipped-over music stands, crushed beer cans, and only then realized the skyline looked different. He counted once, twice. The lightning rod was gone. He stared at the square of rust where the base plate had been. Bolt holes yawned empty. Gone? Overnight? Someone had unscrewed a 10-foot copper rod from century-old joists, hauled it off the roof, and no one had noticed. Unless it had been removed before the jam, before the surge that killed Rye. Milo crouched, fingertip grazing the rusted outline. He tasted iron in his mouth. A freak electrical accident made sense only if the building's primary ground, the rod, had been in place. Without it, a surge could travel anywhere, into the PA, into the mic stand, into the fingertips of a trumpet player mid-solo. He closed his eyes and heard Rye asking, "You ever wonder what'd happen if that old lightning rod went missing?" The groove of the mystery caught, the needle of Milo's curiosity carved deeper. He needed answers. First, he visited the Franklin Building's superintendent, a bulky ex-boxer named Finn Solano, who managed the warehouse's artist lofts. Over bitter coffee, Finn insisted no maintenance order had touched the roof in months. Copper theft? Unlikely, he said, scratching a 5 o'clock shadow. You'd need tools, and someone would have seen sparks from cutting. Unless someone had keys to the freight elevator, Milo countered. Finn shrugged. Elevators locked after 6. Only tenants and owners have fobs. Owners, plural. Milo knew the Franklin estate had been in probate limbo. Earlier that year, developer Carlton Ames bought the structure dirt cheap, promising an upscale renovation that hadn't begun. Ames was rumoured to carry 2 ledgers, one for investors, one for everyone else. If a lightning rod worth a few $100s in scrap disappeared, Amos might not flinch, but Milo doubted Amos had personally unscrewed anything. Developers hired people. Milo's next stop was the salvage yard on Western Avenue. He brought an LP of Freddie Hubbard's Red Clay as a peace offering to Duke, the yard's foreman, who collected early 70s jazz funk. "You get any raw copper drop-off this weekend?" Milo asked, while Duke admired the glossy gatefold. "Brother, we get raw copper every sunrise," Duke said, teeth flashing gold. "But last night, yeah, one fella came through around midnight with a copper pole looked like a lightning spear. Taller than me. Paid cash." Duke flicked through his ledger. "Name on the ID, Vicente Munoz." The name pinged Milo's mental Rolodex. Vicente was cousin to Marco "Shiv" Delgado, a trumpeter with a reputation for cutthroat competitiveness, another rooftop regular. Marco and Rai had publicly sparred over solos, gigs, even the affections of soul singer Zia Hart. A name like Vicente in the mix could be coincidence. Or not. "You mind if I take a photo of that receipt?" Milo asked. Duke hesitated, then relented, after Milo promised a first pressing of Herbie Hancock's Mwandishi. Back at Blue Note Landing, Milo opened the store, but kept one ear on the street. Musicians trickled in, hushed, grief-stricken, wanting to be near the records Rai used to thumb through. Zia Hart arrived near closing, eyes red, voice raw. "I need a copy of Ellington's Black, Brown and Beige," she murmured. "Rai told me to study it." Milo retrieved the disc, then asked gently, "You see anything weird on the roof before the surge?" Zia swallowed. "Rai and Carlton Ames had words in the stairwell. I didn't catch much, just Rai saying something about cheap wiring and not risking lives. Carlton said, 'Mind your horn, kid. Let the grown-ups handle the building.' Sounded heated. 'Thanks,' Milo said. 'And I'm sorry.'" Zia squeezed his hand. "Find out who did this, Milo. Rai trusted you." The store felt smaller after she left, as if grief were hogging the aisles. Milo locked up early and walked the riverfront, letting thoughts syncopate. Carlton Ames had motive to remove the rod if he needed an insurance claim. A direct lightning hit could net hefty payouts, maybe force tenants out, speed redevelopment. But the forecast had proven mild, unless Ames wasn't after lightning, unless he wanted an accident that looked electrical, but on human scale. Suppose Rai confronted Ames about dangerous wiring. An argument ensued. Ames arranged for the rod to vanish, betting that any surge, generator hiccup, amplifier short would travel unpredictably. Maybe Ames even sabotaged the power conditioner. A lethal lecture in minding grown-up business. But how to prove it? Milo returned to Franklin Warehouse, found security sealed the rooftop. The freight elevator, however, still accepted his code from last summer's tenant potluck. He rode to the basement where the building's fuse panels and junction boxes lived amid cobwebs. Years of sorting crackling 78s had given Milo a sensitive ear. He could distinguish shellac hiss from vinyl crackle in half a beat. Now he heard something off, a faint buzz from behind a plywood wall. He pried it loose and found a temporary power tap running from the building mains to a spool of commercial cable, the kind contractors use for spot generators. The connection looked fresh. He traced it up a service shaft labeled "Roof Access Only." Someone had installed an alternate ground line to the PA system, a copper cable thicker than his thumb, then cut it after the jam. The sliced end still smelled of burnt insulation, an unnaturally guided surge indeed. Milo photographed everything, careful not to touch the exposed wires. Then he noticed a plastic tag on the cable. Lennox Electric, Layla Vernon, Master Tech. He knew Layla. She handled sound for half the venues in River City, including myriad rooftop gigs. She was also on Carlton Ames's payroll, rumoured to be overseeing the Franklin renovation once permits cleared. Milo's phone buzzed. A text from Finn Solano. "Ames here now, W. Cops looking for you." Milo pocketed his phone and slipped out a basement side door, adrenaline thumping a walking bass in his veins. If police were suddenly interested in him, Ames had tipped them that he, Milo, tampered with wiring. A preemptive strike, frame the nosy record store owner. Time for B-side tactics. Milo called in every favor he'd banked during years of hooking musicians up with rare vinyl. A lawyer friend got him a brief window before detectives could issue a formal summons. A DJ owed him for a mint Headhunters pressing and provided downtown security cam feeds. Zia Hart convinced Marco Delgado to meet. Milo assembled them in Blue Note Landing after midnight, a clandestine listening party turned war room. The DJ, a tech wizard named Cyrus, projected footage on the back wall. Carlton Ames, Layla Vernon, and Vicente Munoz entering Franklin Warehouse at 5:14 p.m. the day before the jam, hauling tool cases. Hours later, Vicente wheeled out a long tarp-wrapped object, dimensions matching the lightning rod, loaded it into a pickup. Timestamp 9:51 p.m. The rooftop jam started at 10. Marco watched, jaw tight. Vicente said he scored a roofing job, didn't say nothing about Carlton. He sold the rod for scrap, Milo said evenly. He turned to Marco. "Did you know?" Marco shook his head, anger flushing his cheeks. "I talk big, but I wouldn't kill a brother in brass." Zia spoke next. "Rye told me Thursday he'd confronted Ames about sketchy electrical upgrades. Said Ames wouldn't pay for a proper grounding system until construction contracts cleared." Layla Vernon was the missing piece, but her presence on screen tied the circuitry to Ames's payroll. "Circuit's simple," Milo said. "Remove the lightning rod, install an alternate ground line that routes roof power through a temporary path. The path looks legit until you sever it, then the surge, maybe from an overloaded generator or a triggered fault, searches for ground. It finds Rye's horn through the mic stand. One jolt, no culprit on record. Accident. Why Rye? Marco asked, voice shaky. Maybe Ames didn't care who got hit, Milo offered. Or maybe he targeted Rye because Rye threatened an inspection. A tragedy sells the story harder. Cyrus rewound, pausing on Layla, lugging a spool identical to the one Milo had photographed. "I can isolate her license plate leaving," he said. "Police will like that." The lawyer friend, Sonia Calder, drafted an evidence packet. Security footage, salvage receipt, photos. They would take it to Detective Marquez, an honest cop who bought vinyl Christmas gifts from Milo every year. Before dawn, the group disbanded. Milo remained in the hushed store, arms crossed, mind spinning grooves. He set Freddie Hubbard's The Intrepid Fox on the turntable, volume low, letting trumpet riffs remind him why this mattered. At 10 a.m., Milo and Sonia walked into the precinct. Marquez eyed the evidence, lips pursed. "You're telling me a developer orchestrated an electrocution to expedite a renovation?" "Follow the wiring," Milo said. "And the copper." Marquez sighed. "I hate when your mysteries come with homework, Garrison." But he copied the files, summoned 2 detectives, and within hours officers picked up Layla Vernon at a coffee truck near the construction district. She folded quicker than a paper straw in hot espresso. Offered immunity, she explained everything. Ames had ordered protective adjustments to the rooftop, claiming he'd install a modern grounding grid later. He promised Layla a contract on 3 other properties, plus a 5-figure bonus. Removing the rod was simple. Rerouting ground through temporary copper, even simpler. Ames counted on Friday's jam pulling heavy electrical load. All Layla had to do was sever the line after the first set using insulated bolt cutters. She claimed she didn't know someone would die. She assumed gear would fry, not flesh. Vicente Munoz was arrested the same afternoon, singing faster than Layla to reduce charges. Ames approached him with a cash offer for the rod, 500 up front, keep whatever he got at scrap. Vicente roped Marco's pickup without Marco knowing. Detectives confronted Ames in his glass-walled office overlooking the river. Milo imagined the developer's polished confidence cracking like a worn groove. Insurance fraud, negligent homicide, conspiracy, the charges stacked like double LPs. News spread by evening, musicians drifted into Blue Note Landing, the store becoming a chapel of bittersweet relief. Marco apologized to everyone within earshot. Zia sang an a cappella lament under the skylight that brought half the room to tears. Milo let them occupy the aisles. Grief needs an audience too. A week later, a memorial sky session took place on the same roof, lightning rod reinstalled, brand new grounding cables gleaming. The city signed off on permits after exhaustive inspections spurred by scandal. No one skimped on safety now. Milo opened the session with short remarks. "Rye asked me once what'd happen if the lightning rod disappeared," he said into the mic, voice ragged. "We all found out. Now we put things right." He stepped back. Marco lifted Rye's refurbished trumpet, police released it after evidence processing, and blew the opening notes of "I Remember Clifford." The elegy floated skyward, unhurried, sorrowful yet unbroken. Zia joined on wordless moan. The band swelled, and River City's skyline listened. From his spot near the mixer, Milo watched clouds drift without threat. A copper rod caught moonlight behind him, tall and steadfast, resisting both storm and sabotage. He thought of grooves on vinyl, tiny trenches that guided a needle true. The city had its grooves, people like Rye, like Zia, like every musician who risked heartbreak for a perfect note. When someone tried to scratch those grooves, others stepped in to restore the song. Milo smoothed the faders, letting the trumpet rise. Somewhere past the roof's edge, sirens wailed, distant, routine. They would chase a different crime tonight. For now, music reclaimed the air, and Milo, record store owner, amateur detective, keeper of sonic relics, tipped his fedora to the sky, satisfied the track was finally back on tempo.